Reserve's latest move, making $200 billion available to the nation's banks. Was this a creative solution to the credit problem, or is it just a $200 billion bailout? Earlier, I spoke to Congressman and presidential candidate and a member of the House Committee on Financial Services, Ron Paul. What do you make of the Fed's most recent plan?
I see it as more of the same. I think they're desperate. And yesterday, although the markets seem to respond favorably, of course, the stock markets responded, I don't think it touches the problem. The problem comes from too much Federal Reserve intervention, too much inflation of the money supply, and they can't bail out everybody. I mean, they try to bail out Wall Street, and they try to bail out the homeowners and the mortgage companies, and I think the euphoria will pass quickly. But I thought yesterday represented a more desperation than anything else, because they had to coordinate this with other central bankers around the world, hoping that if the markets perceive all the currencies going down at the same time, there will not be a rush out of the dollar. But I don't think it's going to work. There's too many dollars circulating around the world. We've been able to export our inflation for decades because we were the originator of the reserve currency of the world. So this is a much bigger problem than $200 billion will solve. Yesterday, I predicted it would hurt the dollar. Yeah. Today, I think it confirms that the dollar is down.
I was just going to say that. Indeed, yesterday the dollar was up. Today, the dollar was way down again. Now, the question, you use the term bailout of banks. Banks are going to be able to get new loans from the Fed in the form of treasuries using their old subprime debt as collateral. What do you think of the Fed taking on collateral, even short term?
Well, I've predicted this for a long time. There've always been a line of credit to the Treasury, which always gave the Fannie Mae's and Freddie Mac's an advantage. But when push came to shove, I always predicted the ultimate thing, because it's legal for the Federal Reserve to buy up these housing securities, and they're doing it. But this whole idea of lender of last resort, although the business community and the banks and Wall Street love it, it's really very dangerous. That is what creates the moral hazard. That is the atmosphere that created all the malinvestment and all the excessive debt. And the chickens have come home to roost. And this has been going on for decades. And every time there's an attempt for the market to correct these problems, we bail them out by more inflation. This time, it looks like it's going to be very, very difficult to bail out everybody by just going back and resorting to more monetary inflation.
Now, you said that the Fed is buying up some of the subprime. It hasn't begun technically to buy up this debt yet. It is going to be taking on temporarily some of the collateral, some of these subprime debt instruments as collateral for treasuries that it gives up. That's not quite buying up the subprime debt.
Well, they're taking the subprime debt and they're going to guarantee it, and then they give the treasuries, they loan these treasuries to the bank. And they cannot do that without ultimately increasing the money supply. Where if they had the money sitting in the bank, or the Congress had $200 billion, they didn't know what to do with it, they wouldn't have to go through all these tricks. But they don't have the money, and they have to resort to inflation. When you put $200 billion into circulation, or the plan to do so, it is very natural to expect this to hurt the dollar. It used to be you could do this and get away with it for months, if not years. But today, because the dollar's under an attack, every time there's an attempt to try to prop up the system with more monetary inflation, all it's going to do is weaken the dollar. I mean, the market is more powerful than all the power of the central bankers. Ultimately, the market is in charge.
Well, as long as the Fed steps back a little, one economist that was quoted in the New York Sun today suggests that the Fed might have stepped over a certain boundary. Let me just read to you that comment. Quote, "What we are witnessing is an incremental, partial nationalization of the U.S. banking system. Northern Rock in the U.K. is peanuts compared to what the New York Fed is up to." What do you think of that?
Oh, I agree with this, but I would probably argue it's been going on for a long time. I always see especially the very large bank as being in partnership with the Federal Reserve and the government, because, you know, the Fed might create the high-powered money, but the real money is created by the fractional reserve banking system. And that's where the multiplication comes and the excessive money supply comes from. So they've been in bed with the government and the Federal Reserve for a long time. Now it's this attempt to prop it up and bail it out. But ultimately, the market will answer the question on whether or not the dollar has real value. Right now, it looks like the market is saying the dollar is going down sharply. It's going to continue. and other currencies have bit the dust in the past. And I think we're facing something we've never faced in the history of the world before, because we're so global in nature, and we've been able to issue the reserve currency for decades with no backing to the currency.
Well, let me just ask you then, sir, how